Hi, Cancer. Here we have you ready. But I think you're enjoying the present time. And what's interesting about this reading is that we have the Queen under the King under the Queen. And here I dare say that every ounce of healing you do towards each side of yourself will help clear up the side that does not, like the inversion of it. You know, you may have been given love in many forms or ideas in many forms and creations in many forms, but you really need something specific. You needed it in a different way, and you still have, and now you have no doubts. You have no hesitation that this is where you're at, that this is where Taurus season is taking you, that it's not about defying the tradition, it's not about taking down whoever, having revenge or vengeance on anyone. Now, if that's your plan moving forward, you can do whatever you want, of course. However, it's also this Mercury retrograde giving you a boost. That not only is it time for a new tradition, excuse me, it's time for a new way of building your values. Now, Taurus knows about building slow. But if you ask them the past few years, they probably feel the tides a lot because of Uranus. So these changes, these shakeups, are all here for this moment now. That whatever's being presented to you, where it shows you where you're at. A few things in reverse. It shows you where you're not. It shows you that this way of life once looked very appealing to you, and maybe it will again, but it will only look like the one you've co-created. This Tower moment is possibly about you realizing that some things, maybe what you believe, just don't add up. Maybe that this retrograde is showing you how these certain specific realizations have devalued you. That by the new moon in Taurus on the 19th, you can have an inverted view. Something that feels like you are really changing. Another King coming up. There's a lot of people that had influenced you in your life, for sure. People you perhaps put on pedestals that you can no longer. It's also highly possible that this is also clearing out things that have been tender, and maybe even placements in the front of your body. You may have been even touching yourself in a compassionate way on the front of your body more often than not, and maybe you'll become aware of it now, and I don't want to put that on you to do, but if you've noticed it, it's possible that certain things need a little bit more care, a little bit more nurturance. Mars is in your sign. So what's happening now has been coming, but the people around you haven't seen it coming. Right? They wanted to pretend or wanted to act like you're just not capable of certain change, or that they've been able to feed off of this part of you. And yes, that's not great to hear, you know, but if we're gonna get like real right now about the body parts, Cancer and the moon both rule the breasts and the stomach. I just want to make sure I'm not missing anything. This is like one of the hardest things for me to remember. The moon also heals digestion, and that's what Virgo rules. However, Virgo showed up in a lot of readings, just not yours. Oh, I spoke too soon. So yeah. And Mercury are the hands, the nervous system, the arms, and the solar plexus. Virgo's intestines, not just digestion. It's the whole intestine. And you are digesting right now. There are quite a few people who want you not to change this part of you, or shift, or see this. And certain things just didn't make sense anymore. And now, as harsh as it is to realize, it's going to bring you like a lot of raw creative energy, you know? Not that it's a transactional thing, but it is. We'll pull all these cards in a moment. Well, let's pull them now. So if you've been working on something that needs finishing, this is a perfect time to, because you can now finish. You know how sometimes we start things around a time that's significant in some kind of way, small or big, whatever, however you view that. And then we think something's taking too long, or you can become impatient, or whatever it is, and you're not normally like this unless you have some fear, perhaps, unless you feel like it's now or never. And like, you obviously need to trust that if that's what works for you, because again, listening to your body, like we talked about in the beginning, is really important. You're going to feel like sharing some things and putting out there some things and creating off of this. And it's not going to take long for you to realize that where you're going, or where this is going, it doesn't matter what the external view is. These people mattered to you, and they still do. However, this thing that they've all been maybe gaining from, and you're left here with not that. I know this took a little bit of a turn from the beginning. We're going to start with that part. That will all start coming back to you. You may feel like you even have to defend yourself. But the truth is that you just have to, you can defend yourself if you want, if you choose, and maybe you start there. Or you feel like you have to be on the defense. But if you really dig deep into that part of you that's shifting, where you're, moving, where these vibrations of the tides are moving from, if you start from that internal space, like in yoga, we talk about starting with the core, that's the center. We think the roots, yes, the roots are definitely important, but the center of your body, I think, keeps you more in balance even. So focusing on that part of your body and always starting with that movement and starting from there is a big part of stability. So whatever your core essence is, your core values are at this time, all of a sudden these 3 wands are no longer around, and it becomes a stable 4. That you can actually build with whom you're supposed to, when you're supposed to, and this starts to begin to feel like that significant moment that was taking the time that it needed to take. Aries season definitely put that in perspective for you, but it also made you realize that, sorry about that. It can also make you realize, that was just my speaker, it startled me a little bit. Okay, I'm here. That you needed that energy sometimes for the change. Like, extreme change is necessary sometimes, and some people can't do it and they need to ease out of things and jump into other things, but there are plenty of things that we just jump into and don't realize, like, oh, we do this. You know, in some places we move slower than others, and everyone has those places. You know, you can trust people way too quickly without trusting your own judgment of them first, just because they will give you the attention that you need or that you've needed, or they give you the validation, which we do need that from each other. But I think you're realizing that you need someone who's going to also be upfront and honest with you, as you are with them. And if you want to stay passive aggressive, you can do that, but this person will call you out, and vice versa, as you should. It can be in a loving way, it can be in a Mars way. I mean, it is Mars in Cancer, anything is possible right now. And from there, you begin to create, whether in the midst, beginning, or end, like I said from before, from a place that comes from the center of your core, this burning fire of passion and raw skill, talent, energy, magic, whatever you want to call it. It begins to show you the way. You thought you knew this place. And you do. Trust me, if there's anyone that knows this place, it's you. But there's also someone else, and it's Taurus. And there's also someone else, and it's Aries. What has become very clear is that, as enticing as the Fool can be sometimes, if you are the fool in the end, and you don't look a little bit down the road, or who's around you, or have a little bit of more of a boundary with that fool in you. It doesn't have to be with everyone, right? Or you can steer clear of the person who talks a big game and doesn't follow through, or talks an adventure and is really just always lost, perhaps. I mean, we all can be to an extent, but someone who is off center, let's go there. That makes sense, right? You can gather that you're going to be sharper. For some of you, it's a specific Aries that that shows you this side of themselves, who shows up one way and really is another, and you're kind of just over it. For some of you, you're just like, okay, this is a big part of what needs to go to. Like, all right, everyone showed themselves and made the choice basically on their own, and this one I'm making. And that's kind of the balance of the power with the universe. That's kind of your, okay, if you've pulled these tides from me and you've shown me this, I get to do at least this. Right? You need some kind of control cardinal sign, and you realize, like, great. Sure, why not? I'm sure the universe is like, I can't really fuck with that. Right, Cancer? I know you don't always love, especially you doesn't like to be read, but think of this as a loving notion from someone who's seeing something beautiful. A process is now unfolding, or a process has been unfolding. Now it's even more, how do we say, profound, potent, P words, glorious. I'll see you next month.